on.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to the presentation of this report, The Supply Chain Decarbonization, an essential step towards net zero, promoted by Schneider Electric, a leader in the digital transformation of energy management, and with the collaboration of WAS, Women Action Sustainability, a non-profit organization that promotes sustainability between companies, institutions, and society, with the idea of bringing sustainability to the highest decision-making levels via an inclusive, diverse, and professional approach. Before beginning, I would like to thank Women Business Coalition for giving us the opportunity to be here today in this pavilion located at COP28 in Dubai. And especially thanks to Maria Mendiluce, CEO of Women Business Coalition, for her support in the preparation of this report. And congratulations to be recognized by Time 100 Climate as one of the most influencers on climate change. Maybe I should introduce myself. I am head of sustainability climate change at Ferrovial. And at the same time, I am a part of and partner in WAS, and I am in charge of the climate change group from which we launched this project and this report. So when we talk about reaching net zero emissions, we are talking about reducing scope 1 and 2 emissions, but also scope 3. And one of the categories with the greatest impact on scope 3 is the supply chain, in which there is no direct control and there is not a lot of knowledge. For this reason, we wanted to prepare this analysis to understand the challenges and the opportunities that the private sector is facing in the transition to a net zero economy in its supply chain. The data used are based on a quantitative and quality study and several interviews, carried on with large corporations and small, medium-sized companies too, operating in different sectors and with different levels of maturity and in their sustainable management. Interesting conclusions will be presented later, as more than 80% of the companies consider digitalization to be key to reduce the supply chain emissions. Only 30% have a system to measure the carbon footprint of the supply chain, and less than 6% use digital tools to measure impact and progress. And because it's time to move from what to how, I mean it's time to move from objectives, commitments, and agreements to actions, initiatives, and solutions. Some good practices and recommendations are included for companies, financial sector, and public administration, and strengths and weaknesses too, in order to undertake action in a more efficient way. Now, Capucine Jeanet, Sustainability Business Division Director at Schneider Electric in Middle East and Africa, is that correct? Good. Will present the result of this report, and then we will continue to the roundtable moderated by Capucine and with the participation of Cristina Rivero, Director of Industry, Energy, Environment and Climate at COE, the Spanish Confederation of Business Organizations, and Jerusalén Hernández Velasco, Partner in Sustainability and Corporate Governance at KMPG, Spain, and was partner too. And myself to discuss strategies, challenges, actions, best practice, green finance, opportunities, among others. So now I give you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for this great introduction. So today, I will try as much as possible to give you, in a nutshell, a summary of this report that has been made by Schneider Electric in collaboration with Women Action Sustainability. So we will talk about scope 3. which on the way to decarbonize is the big challenge. So the good news is during the last 10 days at the COP, we have seen a lot of discussion about this COP 3. I can tell you that it was not the case 1 year ago in Sharm el-Sheikh, so this is a good news. But basically, if we want to be successful to decarbonize and to reach the famous net zero, we need to involve the COP 3 and our supply chain. So let's talk rapidly about the status of the Scope 3. So today, just keep in mind that for a company, 70% of their emission most of the time is in their Scope 3. So it's massive, and we definitely need to do something. What does it mean? It's 11 times higher than the Scope 1. So it's good to reduce Scope 1 and Scope 2, but basically the struggle to tackle climate change will be on the Scope 3. It's interesting to see that most of the time, we already talk about it, digitalization. The big issue with the Scope 3 will be the access to the data. And when you have access to the data, it will be the accuracy of the data. Interesting point to highlight on the organization, 60% of the company who report to CDP put the climate change risk as it's not a priority. So it's quite still strange today to have this kind of percentage. And if you take S&P 500, only 5% of the company will select their supplier taking into account the climate risk. So quite not a very good data. On the other side, we perfectly know the benefits of engaging the supply chain, innovation, technology, long-term resiliency, etc., etc. So today it's quite strange to have this kind of data, and that's why we took the decision to issue this report. So let's move to the report, just to give you the framework. So basically, 50. So first of all, it has been the survey has been released in July, and it has been the report has been issued in Spanish 3 weeks ago and 2 days ago in English. We have basically the response of 15 companies with an interesting sample because we have roughly 80% of big companies and 20% of SMEs. And we will highlight during this discussion later how SMEs will be vital to decarbonize. Additionally to these 50 companies, we had deep dive discussion with 20 leaders to understand the opportunity and the challenges of the decarbonization of the supply chains. If you take the sample, the most represented sector will be agri, food, and chemicals. So what about this report? What was the interest of the report? First of all, was to have a deep conversation with the company to understand the challenges, but also the opportunity. And based on that, the idea was also to give recommendations, so high-level recommendation for the company, for the financial sector and the public sector, because it's key. These two organizations will be a catalyst to be successful on the Scope 3, and also to provide recommendation and actionable roadmap to the SMEs. Interesting, if you take the categorization of the actors that has been involved on the survey, it's interesting to note that we have one part SMEs, quite mature if you take the numbers. So basically, of course, Scope 3 is still a big struggle for the SMEs, but basically there is a big involvement if you take the emission reduction they want to implement, and if you take the fact that they join initiative. And keep in mind for SMEs, it's really difficult to launch this decarbonization journey. So we are quite proud about the maturity level of these SMEs. Of course, if you move to the large company, the involvement will be much more higher because we have 69% already reporting on their Scope 3. But yes, with 83% that already put set target about the emission reduction, and 40% have joined the SBT initiative. And if you take the financial sector, of course, we have excellent data with 63% of commitment to drive, to implement ESG strategy, and 90% focus on sustainable investment, which is a new time, a catalyst to move forward on the decarbonization. But what were their needs? Totally different if you take the different sector. And this is quite interesting. So for the SMEs, the big struggle will be the knowledge and the talent. So quite difficult for them to have the good people involved within their industry to move forward. And of course, the knowledge. SBT, CDP, carbon neutrality, Dourdin sustainability. Wow, where to start? Frankly speaking, it's not so easy for SMEs. If you take the large company, the big struggle will be the data. We already talked about it, but if we move to the scope 3 and how it's complicated to have activity-based data, of course, data will be a big struggle. And also the progress report. So they need to put KPI facing this target, and they need to follow, they need to monitor, and of course, again, digitalization will be key for them to report on the long term. And if you take the financial sector, no surprise, it will be the long-term profitability, which is not always a good reason to have a big driver. So, we understand the need of the company when we are talking about decarbonization. So, based on that, we had the second step of the study, which was about the challenge. What is the key challenge for each organization to move forward? So, we identified 5 key challenges. First one was, of course, supply chain complexity. So today the supply chain is globalized, so it's really, really difficult to have access to the data. So we start the journey most of the time with data using some proxy. We are not moving straight forward to the activity-based data, and we can see sometimes there is a big gap. Just to give you an example, in MEA, we start a mission with spend database for a company. After 3 years, we reach activity-based data with a mix of 30%, and just thanks to this 30%, the emission drop of 20%. So it's huge. So of course, data is the first big struggle, and the digitalization is key. Then we go to the compliance. They are all aligned. It's perfect to have transparency. They are in favor of some regulation and and we have to be transparent. But basically, most of them, 78%, consider that penalties won't be a driver. It will be the opposite. So we need to put collaboration. We need to find a way. But definitely, penalty won't be something positive for the decarbonization of the supply chain. Then the need for collaboration. There is no more doubt. Collaboration will be key if they want to be successful. And we see that 56% have no partnership to decarbonize their supply chain. But basically, it's not on their hands. So without collaboration, it will be just impossible to decarbonize. Financing, big topic. Who will be in charge of financing this transition? Again, SMEs, a big struggle. So is the big company who have to finance the transition, or do they have to do that by themselves? Question mark. We will deep dive this topic during the roundtable. And then digitalization, technology, and innovation. So 80% consider digitalization as key. We already talked about it, but definitely you need to gather the information, you need to gather the data, but it's not the end of the story. Then you need to monitor, to follow, to track each year what will be the decrease. So without that, there is no decarbonization possible. But on the other side, only 6% have digital tools today. And I think, and we will have again the voice of inside with Ferrovial, we are still struggling to have a tool today able to calculate our scope 3. So basically how to manage that. And only if we move forward of the scope 3, just 33% have today a tool to calculate their emission, even for scope 1 and scope 2. And scope 1 and scope 2, it's not a big deal to calculate. So basically we see that there is still some big lag between what must be done and the reality. So we understand the need. We have seen the different 5 key challenges. What are the levers? So, of course, the idea of the study was to give to this company some, levers, some recommendation. We have 2 kind of levers: the one existing, technology existing today in the market, and the one who will come in 1 year up to 4 years or above 4 years. The good news is today, if we want to decarbonize, technology already exists. So we can do it, basically. What is today possible? We have, of course, the energy efficiency. So we need to use more product with consuming less, basically. Electrification is key, and it will be one of the way to be successful on this journey to net zero. Renewable energy, of course, definitely very well implemented in Europe, more and more in the US and in Asia, a little less in MEA, but it's coming. So again, regulation will be key to move forward to this transition. Then we have circular economy. So of course, we are talking a lot about emission, but everything must be circular, okay? There is no end of this story, so we need to put in place a circular economy to be successful. And a new production process, of course. Then we have what will be soon available, but it's still, under development. So, of course, we have the carbon capture. And I think we put also another hydrogen. Basically, it will come, the phasing out of fossil fuel. So we will see at the end of the COP if we are moving on this one. Finger crossed. New business model, of course. And nature-based solution. So just basically keep in mind for any organization today, technology exists, so there is no reason to wait. Sometimes I'm, talking with my customer and they are all telling me specifically in the region, green hydrogen will be the solution. No way, we are waiting. No, there is no reason to wait. Hydrogen is not scalable today, so we need to move forward, but it's possible to move forward. So now they have to do it. On this one, it's interesting to see, we were talking about the solution which are available in the market, and you see the different sector. So basically, if you put the green line, you see that there is a lot of things to do today. So there is no reason to wait again, and we put that at a global level, so basically, we can do it. Opportunity. Okay. So after all this study, we gather all the information coming from these 50 companies, plus the deep dive we had with the 20 leaders. So basically, most of the time we can categorize the opportunity in 4 categories, okay? First of all will be partnership. There is no other option. An organization is not available to decarbonize alone, okay? So partnership is key. Today we see on the studies that 36% have partnership with their supplier, which is good, but of course is not enough. But each year, this percentage is increasing. So basically it's a good news, and we can be positive on this topic. 24% have partnered with other companies in the sector, which is also good. We have seen some big pharmaceutical company, gathering their force to decarbonize the full supply chain. So basically, if you take one sector and you ask the big companies to gather together, to partner, and then to support, also in terms of financing their supply chain, you can have a good best practice to be successful. And 16% have partnered with their customers. So we are talking a lot about the scope 3, supply chain, upstream. But we don't have to forget the downstream, which is the customers. And for example, for Schneider, this is 90% of our emission is downstream. So there is still a long, long journey to achieve to be successful. But scope 3 does not mean only the suppliers. You have to go and to check your customers. Commitment with suppliers. 44% have a supplier engagement program, which is very good. Of course, we need to increase this percentage, but it's really excellent. We can be quite optimistic with that. Financing, the big question. So, how to finance the transition? 74% have noticed increased demand for information from investors. So we see the pressure. We see that there is external pressure, which is a driver. We have seen that at the beginning of the report. The pressure coming from the stakeholder and the investor is today a key driver for the organization. Is not good, unfortunately, but it works. So we need to follow like that. 35% have experienced positive benefits implementing that. So basically, it's something that has been already demonstrated. When you engage your supply chain, when you engage your company in a decarbonization program, you will see benefit. So most of the time, companies are asking us about the return on investment. Well, still bad, to reply to this kind of question, but there is, and it has been proved. And 26% are highly favorable to finance condition for ESG implementation program. And the last one, digitalization, technology, and innovation. So we already talked a lot about that. It's impossible today to talk about sustainability without talking about digitalization. Is 100% linked. So basically, we have today 40% of this company analyzing their supply chain emission, which is good. So of course, we have, keep in mind on the scope 3, there is 15 categories, so it's massive. It's a tsunami of data, but basically they are already involved, and we perfectly know the measures that could be taken into account, like electrification, efficiency, renewable energy, and circularity to be 100% successful on this decarbonization. So driver for action. What has been made in terms of recommendation? So I have 2 slides for that. We have the big recommendation made for companies, and then we will focus on the finance. Looking at you, you will be the voice later today. So we know, and it has been proposed to all the company, build a partnership. So this is key, and we already talked about that. Then you need to drive participation and action. So basically, you need to support the supply chain. Within Schneider, for example, we have a big supply chain, and 1,000 of our top suppliers has been engaged in a program, and we give them tools, knowledge to support them on this journey. It's impossible to do that alone. And again, the SMEs are key. We will re-talk about that during the roundtable, but basically, SMEs represent today a big percentage of this global emission of the scope 3. So basically, without them, it's impossible to decarbonize. Plan a follow-up. So of course, we need to centralize. Any organization have to centralize this strategy, but also to monitor. So each year you have to monitor to put KPI facing each levels of decarbonization, and on an annual basis, you need to follow and to monitor. And we are talking about a strategy. So most of the time we are talking about 2050 net zero. So of course you need to plan, but you also need to adapt. The strategy you are doing in 2021 won't be the same in 2025, for example. So this is really important. Strategy must evolve. And then we already talked about it. It's about creating partnership. So this is key. You have plenty of examples already existing in the market, with the pharmaceutical industry, with the semiconductor industry. So basically, partnership is key to be successful, and it will create a good ecosystem. So if you involve the big company supporting their supply chain, so basically the ecosystem is there to be successful to decarbonize. So this is at a global level for companies. If we move to the financial sector, keep in mind it's key. It will be the catalyst to be successful in the decarbonization. The big question today is who's going to finance? So if you take best practice in the US, for example, most of the time the big companies are keen to pay for their supply chain. It's absolutely not the case in Europe. In Europe, we agree to give some trainings, for example, but then they must move forward alone. So basically, it's not exactly the same dynamic. And here, within the region, there is no dynamic. So of course, they're not going to finance. They don't even talk about the scope 3. So we still have a little work to manage here. So what about the financial sector, and what were the recommendation of the report? First one, of course, was to define the strategy and to adapt this strategy. Second one was to set ambition. So we've seen a big involvement of the financial sector within SBT, so we need to move forward. Third one was to improve the data quality, which is still a big struggle, but we see more and more tools on the market. So one day I'm sure we will have the perfect tool to gather this Scope 3 data, which are still very difficult to have. Navigate sectoral route to net zero. So of course it's not going to be the same solution considering the different sector. So the finance must also be aware of that. It's not like one recommendation for everybody, but we need to have different solutions considering the different sectors. To be aligned with the stakeholders is key also. So we were talking about big pressure, more and more pressure, but we need to integrate the stakeholder into the strategy, because if you move forward alone, it's not going to be successful. Same thing on the company. If the CEO is not explaining what we are doing, what some people, we spend hours to try to have the data, we won't be successful. And the last one will be take realistic action. So most of the time, we are reading on the sustainability report, beautiful action, but basically it's not scalable. So it's a no sense. So better to work step by step. It's a long journey until 2050 for most of the companies. Some companies are a little more aggressive, but basically the realistic action will be key. To conclude, so we gather 4 quotes coming from experts, thanks to interview we have with them. What it's quite funny is to see that most of the time we will see the same information coming from these leaders. Digitalization, access to data, partnership, collaboration will be key to be successful. So nothing new, but basically we have the key today to be successful. So now we just have to implement and to move forward. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for your time. So now it will be time for the roundtable. So we have seen different statistics. So now I have 3 amazing experts on their domain. So we will have a panel discussion. The idea is to deep dive what we have just seen thanks to the report, considering 3 voices today. So we have, I'm not going to redo the presentation, perhaps you can rapidly just say hello with your name. We have Jerusalem.
Hi, hello, and thank you so much for inviting to me and KPMG to be here and with these amazing people and very good professionals. And thank you for the presentation of the report. This is a very good report. My name is Jerusalem Hernandez. I'm a partner in sustainability and corporate governance in KPMG in Spain, in the Madrid office. You are welcome to our house. And in my day to day, or in my day by day, I help my clients to go ahead in their challenges to assume the challenges in terms of sustainability. We help to change the business models, the governance models to the sustainable transformation. Not only climate change, not only decarbonization, but in a holistic scope. In my case, so well, I'm happy to be an advisor.
Thank you very much. So today we will be the voice of the consultancy, because you have plenty of experience with different organizations. So you will be our external voice. I move forward to Ana. Ana, you already introduced yourself.
Yes, very quick. My name is Ana Peña. I am head of climate change, environment, sustainability at Ferrovial. Ferrovial is a company that develops sustainable facilities. That's all. So.
Perfect. So you will be our voice of internal voice, as a company, what will be the vision, the challenge. So we will deep dive considering this angle with you, Anna. And then again, we have Anna.
Cristina.
Cristina, sorry.
Hello,
Cristina.
Good morning to everyone. I am Cristina Rivero. I work for the Confederation of Spanish Employers and Industries, and I'm in charge of the Department for Industry, Energy, Environment and Climate.
And so just to set up all the voice, I will say, so today you will represent the SMEs. You have plenty of also big organizations, but you see...
everyone. We have small and big companies, and sectoral associations, and also territorial associations in Spain.
Perfect. So you will have... you will give us a big overview of the different challenges, and we will insist a little with you about the SMEs, the famous one. Perfect. So thank you for being there. Today, the idea is really to deep dive this Scope 3, what, as an expert, you are seeing on the market. So I would like to start with you, Christina. So considering the fact that you have plenty of company, so you perfectly see what they are struggling, what is the vision for you today? So I will ask each of you with the different angle, what are the vision today when we are talking about decarbonization?
Well, I think that the vision is... I could tell you that with this vision of all the sectors, all the companies, I think not a single company in Europe and of course in Spain has not made the reflection of what is my role in this sustainability race. No, we have very stringent regulation in the EU, and in Spain we have also very ambitious targets. So there's no other way. Everyone is on the race of sustainability, for example, to access the recovery funds. I think everyone now is on board and is completely conscious of the challenge they have to face.
Good news. Anna, as a big company, I assume your Scope 3 is quite huge. So basically, what is for you companies a strategic vision when we are talking about decarbonization and supply chain, basically?
As I said before, our motto is to develop sustainable facilities. So what we want and we have is a lot of commitments to reduce emissions in all the life cycle of a facility. So we want to reduce emissions during the design and during the construction. And you said before, it's really important to consider the emissions in the use of the sold product too. So because we are thinking about the design, the materials that we consider and we include during the project and the construction has a really huge impact on the emissions of the company. The 90% of the emissions are in the Scope 3, and the 20% of the emissions are related with the supply chain. So for that reason, we are working with the suppliers in order to know more about them. And we have targets to reduce emissions in Scope 1, 2, and 3, and are validated by the Science Based Target Initiative.
Thank you very much. Jerusalem?
But in my perspective, I think that not always we are seeing a strategic movement. I think I agree with Christina. In Spain and in Europe, no one company is out of the sustainability trend or sustainability wave. But a lot of companies are trying to comply. You said that 60% of companies that are reporting their decarbonization data, the reason is external pressure.
Right.
And I think we have a challenge in that point. So if we want to assume the decarbonization in a strategic way and in a long-term perspective, we must understand the real value for our company of this movement. Not only a check compliance, and not only related to external pressures. But in my company, decarbonization makes sense or not. And in my suppliers, makes sense or not. And if the answer is yes, it makes sense for me, I think we must know better our supply chain. The most of the projects that we advance are related to the knowledge about the supply chain. Okay. Sometimes companies have not visibility about the risks or about the ambition of these suppliers or the data, of course, you spoken before very well. So we must first understand the value of the decarbonization in our supply chain, and if we are suppliers, which is the value for me, because if we only think in terms of compliance, regulation, or external ambitions, it's not going to be a success in the future.
Thank you very much, Jerusalem. Very helpful. So basically, we deep dive with the report, the challenges, the opportunity. So Christina, I would like to start with you, considering that you have this view with the different company you are representing. We've seen 5 challenges. What for you today, the big challenge for the company you are representing? Is there something specific? So this is my first question. And then, with the big panel you are representing, do you see a specific initiative that has been successful today with the organization?
I'm giving you our numbers of a survey that we have done between the Spanish companies in Spain, no? Because we have the companies are facing very stringent regulation, as I was telling you, for example, for calculating their carbon footprint. Yeah. So we made a survey with more than 800 companies in Spain. 430 SMEs and 157 micro SMEs, yeah, to be able to assess if they are really calculating their carbon footprint or not, and if this is a challenge or not for them. And 83% of the companies do not register their carbon footprint.
At all? At all. Scope 1, Scope 2, I don't talk about Scope 3.
At all. So, and we need to say that in Spain, 98% of the companies are SMEs or micro SMEs. So this is a huge entrepreneurial ecosystem. And from the 17% that calculate their carbon footprint, 70% Scope 1 and 2, and only 30% Scope 3. So it's true that everyone is aware of the sustainability race, but it's true also that the challenges are huge. And in terms of SMEs, I think that the report identifies perfectly well the big types of challenges, no, that they are facing. And I think it's not awareness, but for example, data. For me, the management of data is crucial for SMEs and also to comply with the regulation. The pressure that we were talking about, the demand of information, yeah, from investors and from financial sector, no, for me, there has been an inflection point with the entrance of the financial sector in all these decarbonization objectives. But maybe the requisites of information that they are asking to the companies are too big because they don't have the data, they don't have the tools to provide this information. And also when we talk about the taxonomy in EU, for example, also the big companies are facing real big challenges to give that information. So imagine for SMEs when they are facing regulations concerning, first of all, their environmental processes and products, then the reporting requirements. So they are facing, I think, a tsunami of requirements that may be quite scary, yeah, for them. Yeah. So they need more tools and initiatives, of course, from the companies. We have here a company, for example, Naturgy, that has a very nice program, and they offer their clients, no, Alejandra was telling me that they offer their clients the opportunity to calculate the footprint for them, because they also have to take into account these reductions for their own Scope 3. So from the hand of big companies, I think that a lot of initiatives are appearing to get on board the SMEs.
Thank you very much, Christina. So basically, yeah, again, we are talking about collaboration, partnership, and the big issue with the data, definitely. Anna?
Yes, in Ferrovial case, I think the main challenge is the complexity of the supply chain. When we think about a toll road, a building, a bridge, sometimes we think that there are big facilities, infrastructure, that there are a lot of knowledge behind them. But in reality, this type of projects, every project is unique, is handmade, and is artisanal, and is located in different geographies, and we have a lot of clients, different clients every year, so that is really challenging. So only one of the companies, we have more than 20,000 suppliers, and because every year we have different projects, we see that there is a huge rotation about the suppliers. So it's really difficult to work with them. However, because we have targets to reduce emissions and because we have a green bond linked to suppliers related with reducing emissions too, we have to work with them about what we are doing. So we have a collaboration program because we know or we want to know more about them. We want to know the conversion factor that they are using, if they have targets, if they have targets validated by the Science Based Target Initiative, if they are reaching the goals. So we need all that information because we are going to consider that in the purchasing decisions. Other thing, we are doing that with the main materials, the supplier that supply the main materials, steel, cement, and concrete. And what happened with the energy suppliers? So in 2025, the 100% of the electricity that we are going to consume will be green, renewable electricity. And with the energy that is not electricity, we have different projects and projects with the idea to analyze the efficiency of this energy in the different contracts that we have.
Thank you very much. So again, we have this big issue with the supplier and the data. Did you implement a quick one? Did you implement a policy to choose your supplier, or it's still something you are just analyzing?
Yeah, we are analyzing in order to understand the conversion factor for every material, because sometimes there are information about the company, but you don't have the information for every material that you need in every country, in every project. So what we are trying to do now is to have information, and we will consider that all information in every case.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Jerusalem. So you see a big panel of companies.
Yeah.
Today, what is the most relevant?
In terms of challenges and opportunities, I think this is the key point. Of course, the data are a challenge, but not only to have data. I think that sometimes in Spain and in Europe, we have the Diogenes syndrome. I don't know if in English it has a translator. Maybe. Bolillos, los bolillos. Síndrome de Diógenes for all of us, because we have a lot of data, but not always comparable, not always are the rigor of the data are appropriate rigor, and we are double accountability in terms of decarbonization or footprint. So we must do an intelligence exercise about the analysis of the data to define the best indicators and to collect the best information. And I think this is the challenge, not only to manage the data, which is a challenge too, of course, and digitization is key. And I think we have other challenge, which is we are speaking in this COP, we have spoken about Scope 3 all the time. In all the events, we have spoken about supply chain and about our suppliers and clients too. But sometimes we are thinking that, well, my case is the only case. No, we have a lot of companies, small and big, and in sectors very diverse. And we must to understand the complexity of some sectors that have a hard work to decarbonize their activities. So we are not speaking about only, well, assess your footprint is not easy for a lot of sectors and activities. So we must understand it and help them to transit this pathway that is not so easy. But I think we have a very good opportunity. We are in the best moment of the history for us. I think it's a very motivated moment. And we need three things, in my opinion. One of them is the talent, the knowledge, the talent, capacities, the skills. And we have the opportunity to change all the environment around it. The other maybe is capital. Without capital, we haven't anything. But capital is moving, and I think I agree with Christina. When the banks and investors access to this wave, they are the new activists. And in the third point is alliances. Alliances to go ahead together, to invest together, to invent together the solutions that today doesn't exist, because there are some inventions that don't exist today. You said before, we have availability to some technologies and solutions, but there are some other perspectives that we must invest and we must invent. So with our suppliers, we must do an alliance in terms of to achieve all these new challenges. Regulation is a challenge, maybe, a headache too, but it's an opportunity, because all together have a crystal ball that we haven't had before. We have never had this crystal ball in the past, but we know, well, the technology maybe is going to be this or this, and the objective, the target is going to be that, and whatever. So we have really a crystal ball, and all of us can go together to this objectives or to this target. So I think it's a challenge, but an opportunity too, to define our strategies, not only with our capacities, but with the roadmap written in the regulation.
Thank you very much. I will keep you on the floor if you don't mind, because you opened the door to the sustainable finance.
Yeah.
So basically, we during this day at COP, everybody was also talking about sustainable finance. So how do you think sustainable finance is going to be key on the decarbonization of the value chain?
Yeah, very good question. And we have here Anna, for example. I invite all of you to speak with her after this event if you want to know anything else, because it's a reference in this topic. But in my experience, I am seeing that the investors, banks, and all the providers of information are trying to give more and more and more information, not only for having the information, but to analyze risks in a more holistic perspective. And for them, it's very, very important not only the information about the company, but the information about their supply chain. This week, we have known the results of Dow Jones Sustainability Index, for example. Is only one example. And in this questionnaire, and in all different questionnaires, and in the politics of the banks, we can see, what about your supply chain? What is the footprint or whatever about your supply chains? Human rights too, not only decarbonization. And this week yesterday we have celebrated the International Day of Human Rights. I remember to you, because climate change and human rights are strongly linked. And investors and banks try to view all this perspective in the risk mindset. No? And we need a capital, but if we are a big company, maybe we can help other companies, small companies maybe too, to access to this capital. Past year, we developed a report about the SME companies, and they thought, well, some clients are asking information about climate change, but banks are not asking. And banks haven't products related to decarbonization. It was a surprise for me, because I know that is not true. But they haven't access to this kind of conversation with their capital providers. So in small companies, I think we have a lot of challenge in terms of translate all these wave in products, in concrete products for them, and in terms of big companies that have green bonds or social bonds or sustainability-linked loans or whatever, maybe in the financial sector must demand to these companies some indicators related to their supply chain, not only for you, but for your suppliers, because it's the only way to push together and to give the capabilities and to share the information. Taxonomy, for example, is a very huge challenge, but for me, it's a very good tool to prepare the strategy. How sustainable do you want to be? Taxonomy is the tool, because you can see in terms of turnover, capex, and opex. It's not the pin. It's not the narrative. It's not the claim. It's the capex, or is the opex. No? So taxonomy is a very, very good tool. CCRD, CCDDD, the CBAM, we have a lot of different regulation that help us to give more information to capital providers, and capital providers have the responsibility to help the companies to go ahead.
Thank you very much, Jerusalem. In a nutshell, very, very clear, all the good things that could be implemented. Christina, I would like to come back to you with the SMEs. So basically, the numbers you give to us was quite amazing. I was not thinking how strong was this kind of data. What do you think today SMEs will need as tool, as support to be successful? Because there is a big journey to achieve right now.
I think they need tools. No, you were saying like Jerusalem, they need tools. We have objectives, but we need to move to implementation phase, and we need tools to get on board the SMEs. And these tools can come from the big companies or from associations. I will also to highlight the value of organizations and associations that are making an important role to sectorialize these tools, no? Because not all the sectors are the same. It's not only SMEs. SMEs depend on one sector they come from. They have some challenges or others. So I think we need to move to implementation, and we need to deliver them easy tools to make their life easier.
But do you see? I will focus on Spain. Do you see this dynamic coming with the big company giving tools?
Yes, I was telling you about Naturgy, but I think that, for example, all the big companies, we have Amazon that is trying in Spain. No, they give renewable electricity to their distribution fleets with their contractors, so that they can have access to renewable energy, and they are now the biggest buyer of renewable energy, so that they can diminish also the cost, and they get all their distribution fleets. They make the case for them to access to this easily, to electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, but it's Amazon who is providing for that. And this kind of partnerships, we are seeing them between companies more and more, coming especially from big companies.
Thank you very much, Christina. So definitely time to implement now. To conclude, Anna, we'd like to talk about public administration. So I know that you are part of a European Commission workshop to explore. potential way of decarbonize the transport. So basically, I would like just to ask you what today you are asking from the public administration to be successful and to achieve these decarbonization targets.
Yes, I think, before I would like to say something, is that what the European Commission is doing is quite intelligent. Is before making recommendations, what they want is to understand the reality in the construction sector, because the working group is to gather all the initiatives that are in this sector in order to decarbonize the construction of the transport facilities. So, coming back to your question, I think that the first via is, or the first role is via legislation. I think that the administration has to establish the rules that we have to follow, the companies, the society, and in general, third parties we have to follow. But before, it's important what the European Commission is doing to understand the reality of every sector. Lastly, I think that maybe it's not polite to say, but I think that the administration is important to be a model. I mean, if it's important that they apply what they are requiring to third parties. So the buildings is important, the public building is important to be more efficient. The fleet that they are using is important to be more efficient. And when we are talking about a public contract, the public contract is important that consider all those measures and requirements that they are asking to third parties. So I think that for me, the main role via legislation, and it's important that they apply and follow all the recommendations that they are asking to third parties.
Thank you very much. Yeah, leading by example. Perfect. So to conclude this panel, we just have time. I would like to ask to all of you one impactful title if you want to comment the challenge of the decarbonization of the supply chain. So I will start with you, Christina.
I would stick that the importance of implementation. We need to move to implementation, and we also need alliances and more Magilis, no, like in the COP, more assemblies and more thinking together, because wonderful projects are coming from those alliances.
Thank you.
I say that the supply chain is a key driver for reaching companies' targets.
And Jerusalem,
and
the last word.
Maybe I will say that your company depends on your supply chain, and your supply chain is your company, and invest in helping them to transit this pathway to sustainable transformation is a good investment.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Women Business, thank you very much for hosting this panel. And so we can stop here. Thank you.
Podríamos hacer una foto y luego con todo.